answer the question in the chat. NIHL players as Pokemon. We'll be with you in just a moment. Sorted out a little bit that just needed sorting there. Take a quick drink of water. See a few people starting to wobble into the chat. Hello, hello, what we'll do. Just went for a bit of calmer, cooler music this evening rather than what we had recently. Just fancied a bit of a change. You can't always do the same thing all the time. I'm a very big believer in that. Which does also mean the music's gone. We need to hit the button. Hey, there we go. There's always that little panic about doing this, and if anybody else, if any of the rest of you stream or you watch streamers on the regular, there's always that little worry when you do a transition and you press the button and the light for your webcam just doesn't come on, which, as we know, happened a couple of weeks ago here on the stream. Appears folk are starting to come in. Kev's there, Andrew's there, Amber, good evening. Jamie, I see, is joined as always, as folk usually do when there's not games being played on a Wednesday night. Either way, folk are slowly making their way in, which is great to see. So you know what, we've already hit that point, and we want to make sure we head off on time, so our friends Belfast Connected can get rocking and rolling. So I suppose we better rock and roll ourselves. Guys, gals, and the gender fluid and all beyond the binary, it is Wednesday night, it is 8 PM, and welcome back once again to the BOTW What's Current stream. My name is Anthony Russell, here to take you through the wild, weird and wonderful world of the National Ice Hockey League structure here in Great Britain. We focus on the National Division, that is our home port, our bread and butter, but that does not mean we do not do the whole shebang. We go through absolutely every game that's been played across the National, as well as Division 1 and Division 2 in the north and in the south. Happy Wednesday evening, everybody. Back at our regular time, back at Wednesdays at 8 PM. Thank you very much for putting up with everything last week. Thank you if you joined on Friday. Off the back of quite an eventful last week. Last week for me, certainly that Wednesday was there, and of course we've got a bunch of stuff to talk about. But we'll do the housekeeping as we usually do. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for all things related to the NIHL, and of course a couple of extra pieces on the website this week. We've got our Banners on the Road series rocking and rolling, with the Bison not playing this year. Running with the Herd has been put into storage for the time being, and you get Banners on the Road. So basically, as I do this rink hopping adventure that I now seem to be on, doing a mixture of watching games, commentating on games now as well, which is really weird to think about from a couple of years ago, and everything else. Banners on the Road is basically taking you on a journey, going in depth into those games that we're looking at from across the NIHL that I go to, and also now a little brief venture as well into the Elite League, thanks to last Wednesday's fun and games from there. But what you have from this week is you have 2 games in Guildford, which you can enjoy. The Banners on the Road from last Wednesday night's game between Guildford and Manchester, where I kind of take you inside the commentary box and have a look at that. And then we have Sunday's game that I went to, finally managing to make it to the Spectrum for the Guildford Phoenix and their game recently with the Basingstoke Buffalo, which we'll talk about in a bit more depth when we get to South 2. But that's there. Our Hockey Story series is there, long form, in-depth pieces from the 19th century to the present day, behind the Iron Curtain, into war and beyond, players, officials, all kinds of crazy things from the NHL to the NIHL in our Hockey Story series, and a bunch of other stuff that's all there on the website, bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. And of course, as we're on YouTube, down there in the description is all the links, Twitter, Facebook, and of course the virtual busking hat that is over at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. Of course, if you enjoy what you see, like I say, there's no paywall magically appearing or anything like that. Not going to do a Patreon and sort of do extra bits and pieces, but costs have gone up this year for me for doing all these bits and pieces. So, like I say, just passing the virtual busking hat around. If you don't feel the need to contribute, if you don't want to, but please do if you feel free to go down, chuck some money in the pot. It'd be massively appreciated. The other thing, of course, we have to say is we are back, like I say, on our Wednesday night, our usual home here throughout the British ice hockey season at 8 p.m. And that, of course, means as we're live on YouTube, that means we get the chat function that's over there on the side. Questions, comments, anything you want to throw in and chat about as the show goes on, please feel free to put it in. But of course, if you are using the chat function, do remember the golden rule here on the What's Current stream. DBAD, don't be a dick, be respectful of other people's thoughts and feelings, and we are going to have ourselves a wonderful time. Boy, oh boy, have we had some eventful stuff this week. Great to see a few more people joining the chat there. Mr. Hullaby, good evening, or good afternoon, as I should say, given you're at least 5 hours behind us. Charlotte, great to see you as well. But yeah, plenty of stuff going on. Of course, our friends across the pond have finally caught up. The NHL has finally started. We always like to think that Britain's ahead of North America on a few things. This is definitely one of them. Starting hockey in October is for heathens. But either way, there's been a really, really eventful last couple of days in the NHL. And of course, news coming out of the NHL today. Archie Salisbury leaves the Peterborough Phantoms. This was actually, I did get some questions from regular viewer. I know he doesn't participate in the chat much, but he always pops in. So massive thank you to Tony DeMacro who tunes in on the regular, because we've had some signings and bits and pieces obviously come out, but Tony did ask a couple of questions, so we can kind of cover a chunk of the signing announcements we've had today in the NHL National Division all in one go. Not able to watch live tonight. 2 questions if you have a chance. With 2 prospect signings for the Sheffield partnership today, do you have any more confidence in the Steelers' takeover to help develop Brits? And any idea where Salisbury will end up after leaving Peterborough? We'll take the Salisbury element of that one first, because as we mentioned, Archie Salisbury, of course, announced today the quoting from the words from the Phantoms there, where he has chosen to continue his hockey career away from Peterborough. Now, my understanding was that Salisbury has not been getting tons and tons of ice time with the Phantoms, and his choice to kind of move away from Peterborough could be predicated on a bunch of things. Has he been offered something elsewhere? Has an opportunity come up for him to go and play and do something else somewhere? Where does he end up? Any word? For me, given his age and given the kind of project that's going on, Salisbury feels like a barn door opening for that Milton Keynes Lightning, Milton Keynes Thunder partnership. Given where he's based and given the sort of things that will be on offer for a player of his age, then this to me feels like it could be a potential thing. Just because you look at the Hamill brothers. Now, the thing that confuses me, and it confused me with the Hamills as well, really, is that they are above the level, I think, of playing NIHL 1 South. I get why. Because it will be an opportunity. It's an opportunity for both Hamill brothers and potentially for Salisbury to play really big minutes. And I'm talking 15, 20, 25 minutes a night, power play, penalty kill, the whole 9 yards. I get it. But for me, they're kind of, and it's not to denigrate South 1. As you all know, I really like South 1. I think South 1's got the potential to be the most competitive division in the country this year. But as players, I think their level is above that. Jamie has also just put in the chat that in terms of roster makeup for the Lightning, that under 18 space is available. Salisbury would slot in very nicely in terms of that. And of course, you can then dual register him for both sides. If the Lightning didn't have a game for some reason, then he could play down. But for me, if Salisbury is moving that way, I appreciate Kev, who's in the chat, will probably not like this as a Phantoms fan, but Milton Keynes seems like an obvious kind of place because of that opportunity to kind of do that kind of work. He can train and get minutes at national division level, where he should be playing, really, if we're honest. But then also as well, if you want to kind of up his confidence a bit, you ask him maybe to go play a game for the Thunder when MK have the night off, can go in, can dominate, can really try and take control of a game in a way that maybe a Tom Norton could, a Lee Jameson could, that kind of thing. and and sort of seeing how bits and pieces will go from there. In terms of where else he goes, I mean, he's a former Romford junior, so the Raiders potentially is an option there as well for Archie Salisbury. I don't know really where else he would kind of go. As horrible as it sounds, you're not going to sign for Swindon at the moment unless you really like your travel. And we'll talk about that in a minute as well. But yeah, I think Milton Keynes feels like a more natural fit given the openings in the roster. Don't rule out a potential appearance, though, in Essex with the Raiders for Archie Salisbury would be my thoughts on that. With the signings, though, of Sam Cooper and Dan Crowe, who, of course, have been announced as being on these two-way contracts between the Steelers and the Steel Dogs, does it give me any more confidence in the Steelers' takeover of helping develop Brits? No, because not in the immediacy, no. Is it great to see? Yes. I think it's a really interesting signing on the Dan Crowe perspective. Just because he obviously appeared last year in MK, he's now moved up to Sheffield, and all I've heard about, and it's not just Jamie McElroy, a lot of people coming to me saying how well Crowe has been playing for the Steel Dogs and how impressive he's looked so far this season. So actually, to see that he's been able to earn that way in, especially as well when you think of Curtis Warburton, who's now moved away to Solway, he's not on a two-way contract anymore. Unsure 100% what's happening with Jordan McLaughlin in terms of his two-way status. So having that young netminder to have around, build up, have alongside those Steelers netminders, and of course learning week in week out from a high quality, high level veteran like Dimitri Zamosdra is really, really good for him too. But the proof will be in the pudding. Because the proof will be in the pudding. Crowe has, I believe, extended his contract to 2025. So are we going to see him backing up the Steelers? Are they going to look to try and bleed him in? Are they actually going to do anything with it? Or is it just an announcement for the sake of an announcement? It's really, like I say, it's too early to tell on a lot of the stuff in terms of the Steelers owning the Steel Dogs, apart from the Steel Dogs jerseys, which are ugly now. But it would be unfair to say, no, it doesn't change my mind in the sense of that I just don't trust them not to do it. But nothing's happened yet. It's too early, and I think it would be better to judge things on kind of the sum of their parts down the line rather than just kind of going, yes, it's totally changed my mind, or absolutely not, I'll never change my mind. The evidence isn't there for me to change my mind, so I'm not going to on that front. But an elite league contract is an elite league contract. They're very, very hard to get for young British players, so congratulations to both of them on that. Cooper, though, becomes very interesting when you think of the fact that during my interview in the summer with Graham Bauer, the director from the Bees, they were very, very high on getting this young man, didn't make it out of pre-season, and now finds himself on a two-way contract with the Steelers and the Steel Dogs. I don't know what happened there, but that's weird. That is a little bit on the weird side. From my understanding, Carter is going to be mainly on the MKL roster with Cam hopping in and out of the roster, says Alfie. I mean, yes, I can appreciate that, given Carter's got a league winners medal to his name. Salisbury didn't ice on Sunday for the Phantoms either. 3 Phantoms games to Salisbury playing D. Looked decent enough on third line for National. Yeah, and that's why I'm confused about it. Eastern had him at South East and GB. I think Buckman would provide the Peterborough link. He'd get plenty of ice time, would really gel with Captain Tomlin. I don't think, James, if he goes to the Raiders, I don't think, like I say, I think he'll be with the Raiders rather than the Buccaneers. Who do Phantoms get in to replace Archie? Anyone who fits Slava Star. See, here's the thing. I realise that you're asking that as a question, Kev. Actually, what I think you need to do is you need to just put the question mark after Archie. Anyone who fits Slava style, I think, will come in as a replacement on that front. And more just kind of because what options are there. But for my many criticisms of stylistically how Peterborough play, one thing we have to credit Slava Kulikov for is that he gives young players chances, like Archie Salisbury. Even though he doesn't play much, doesn't play for the Phantoms very much anymore. Taylor, Romeo, Hunt, Forster. Young guys who come through, if he thinks you're good enough, you're going to get an opportunity to play for Slava Kulikov and at least get the chance to do it. Even if you don't end up panning out, and Taylor Romeo is a good example of this, but he's not scared to say to a young kid, sink or swim. There's your chance. Have your chance. And actually, when you've got guys on your back end like Scott Robson, like Tom Norton, you can have one shift in 4, one shift in 5, where you go out with a guy like that, and you'll be looked after, and that's setting you up to succeed. Because if you make a mistake, your coverage is, like I say, Tom Norton, still one of the best defensemen in the division. Scott Robson, admittedly not one of the best, not in the sort of top 10 of the division, but solid and reliable and a veteran presence. Like, there's tons to do there in that sort of sense. And I think it'd be really interesting to kind of to see how that pans out for the most part. Just pulling up the stuff about Swindon, because of course we do need to talk about the Wildcats, because there have been more mashing. Kynaston is a good example. Yes, thank you. Louis Kynaston. I've just completely blanked his name. I nearly said John, and John's his dad. That's definitely not who he's playing in D. Definitely who's not playing for the Phantoms this year. If he started playing for you, things have gone really awry, and all the old man jokes would be made. But I'm pretty certain it's Louis Kynaston. Just having a quick squiz there, because of course the news out of Swindon, firstly, is that the supporters club for the Wildcats have started kind of a GoFundMe just to kind of try and put some extra money into the club with everything that's going on right now. That did cause a bit of a discussion between myself and Michael from Pucking Mad. I know Michael felt... and I'll pull that up again. I'll pull that up again in a sec, because we'll talk about that. But there's some shuffling around of games. The Cats have kind of moved a few things around, and what we end up getting is we end up with a game. One of the games that's going to be in also not mind Tyler Delabatouche. Yep, very, very true. Yep, came in as injury coveted Tyler. But the Wildcats have made some more fixture announcement changes. Sunday the 22nd of October then, the Southwest Derby just becomes that little bit bigger. Wildcats versus Pitbulls is going to be at Planet Ice in Bristol. That's a 7 p.m. face-off on the 22nd of October. And then, of all places, the Wildcats go west, and they go really, really west, Eve, across the bridge into Cardiff Bay on the 11th of November, a 7 p.m. face-off. I believe the 11th is the Saturday, because Cardiff are away in Belfast, which means that the Vindico Arena is free, and you will get England versus Scotland in Wales. Swindon take on Solway at the Vindico Arena in Cardiff on the 11th of November at 7 p.m, which is that's a pig for Solway. Although maybe you fly to Cardiff from Glasgow for that one, boys. But that is a really, really good use of just making use of what's available. Big shout to Cardiff as well, because the Devils, of course, operate the Vindico. And like finding a way to kind of help out Swindon in dire need is great to see. And of course, it's just giving the Cats are slowly edging towards that point where they reckon they're going to get the rink back. And whether they get it back just before Christmas or just after, whatever happens with that, the Cats' ability to be able to play and get ice is going to be fantastic. Cardiff, and the other big thing is Bristol, not too far away, much closer than Milton Keynes. Cardiff, not quite as close, but definitely easier to get to than Milton Keynes, because I love you MK lot, but there is no such thing as a good drive to MK, and then you get into MK, and there's definitely not a good drive in MK. Doubleheader on the 21st, 22nd in Bristol. 7 p.m. face-off due to the Huskies facing off at 4:15 versus Streatham. I believe the women's team of the Streatham Storm, Jamie. The Black Hawks are the NIHL 2 side on that front. But if the Huskies are playing, and then you've got Swindon versus Bristol after that, and you can do like Hockey Day in Bristol, go knock yourself out on that one. That'd be massive. I think Slavers teams are so solid. You could even put a competent D-man in there and they'll be fine. In real terms, Salisbury right here, right now, isn't much of a loss, a third-line D-man. I think the issue there is that that's a player who you probably potentially could have kept at your club for a very, very long time, developed, moulded into your game plan, and you've now lost him for a reason. I get what you mean, though, James. I think like Archie Salisbury's not leading the line for you, but somebody's going to have to lead the line someday. Tom Norton ain't going to play forever. Scott Robson isn't going to play forever. Your decal's getting older, and your good young up and coming defenseman you've let go. So that's the thing there. Thomas Graham, massive shout out to Todd Kelman and Pete Russell for the assist on that one. Very, very much so indeed. For any jokes that we can kind of make about any antipathy between folk, like whether it's the Elite League and the NIHL, whatever way you want to look at it, British development. Well, you don't get much better in terms of development than like helping clubs out when things are tough. So shout out to Cardiff for that one. But yeah, so obviously some signings, some bits and pieces. The one thing we also probably do need to do is to look at the games from last weekend in the NHL National Division. Pitbulls 2 earlier that game, not the Huskies. That would make sense. Pitbulls 2 versus Blackhawks would work. So I think Jamie just... So many teams in Bristol. And actually, isn't that fantastic that we've got so many teams back in Bristol? Just tying yourself around. Swindon before travelling to Cardiff on Saturday. 11th are in MK on the Friday night, and also the weekend before that they're in Solway for 2 games because I'm going to be at one of them, which will be fun. Right, let's hit the button. The transition. Results from last weekend in the NHL National Division, the 7th and the 8th of October, and well, a very, very good weekend for the Bristol Pitbulls. Obviously, all the rigmarole they had with Owen Sobchuk being released and everybody kind of wondering what was going to happen there. And the Pitbulls come out of the gate, and clearly maybe things weren't, there was a lot of talk about what had happened, and clearly things are looking up. The Bristol Pitbulls on the board for 23-24, a 5-2 win over the Sheffield Steel Dogs in the first of that home series they had. And then, well, it's happened before in MK, and it happened again. The MK Lightning beating the Leeds Knights by 5-3. The 150th goal of his Knights career for Kieran Brown. Not enough to overcome Tim Wallace's side in the Thunderdome. Peterborough picking up an important win with Ivor Björkley-Nordstrom in the lineup for the weekend. A 3-1 win for the Phantoms against the Telford Tigers on Saturday. Whereas the Bees and their long road trip that they had last weekend, 2 road games for Dom Gabai's side, started in Dumfries. And, well, a goal for very, very popular Scot Liam Morris, and a 4-1 win for the Bees as the Sharks continue to look for their first points of the season. And then, well, the Raiders nearly chucked this one away. They were quite a way in front here, and then the Wildcats decided that they were not going to go quietly into the night. 6-5, the Raiders end up winning. They still hold on, but Swindon proving that even though they are struggling at the moment for a few bits and pieces, they are not struggling to put up a fight when it comes to getting on the ice. But another loss for the Cats so far this year. That takes us into Sunday, and well, the Bees had a very good Saturday night. They had a very bad Sunday. They get absolutely slapped about. A 7-0 win for the Hull Seahawks. A massive shutout for Jordan McLaughlin early in the season as the good start for Matty Davis' side continues. But to put another team like the Bees, of course the Bees are still hanging around that top of that table. We'll look at the table in a moment. But, as strange as it sounds, that was 2 sides. That was 11th versus 10th from last year. And they are both top half teams right now. Big win early doors with a lot of goals on the board there for the Seahawks. So congrats to them. And then, boy, oh boy, you've been dreading me to talk about it, MK fans. It was very much a bit like The Simpsons. You made me bleed my own blood. And the Leeds Knights come back and absolutely smack MK about. They paid the price on that one. Admittedly, a loss is a loss the night before. Both teams come out of this with 2 points, but a massive statement made by the Leeds Knights. 9-1. They absolutely shank Milton Keynes back at home. It should be said. And here's thing, Kieran Brown, we talk about the fact, over 300 points now for the Knights, over 150 goals. Apologies, I've got something stuck in my teeth. But yeah, if you're going to lose a close game the night before, the way you respond is then back home against the same team and absolutely just hump them. That is a one that's going to be a bit tough to take, and probably cause some interesting discussions for Tim Wallace at training this week. Attendance of 2,229 in MK on Saturday night as well. Irrespective of any results, that's great for the division to see, of course. We know MK like to pack out the barn. MK Leeds games have always been pretty entertaining for the most part. Maybe not Sunday, sorry. What's that Alfie said there? That Saturday game was a perfect advertisement for the division, for quality of the division. Sunday MK well and truly shattered. Fair play for being honest about it, but yeah, you don't lose 9-1 when things have gone well. I think, on that particular front. Peterborough then, they get themselves well and truly on the board. A 4-point weekend finally for the Phantoms. A 3-1 win away in Romford against the Raiders. The Raiders are still starting a bit slow. A few new guys into the roster. Obviously, they've been able to score some goals, as we saw on Saturday night, but they just haven't quite got the gears aren't quite turning for the Raiders so far at the moment. And remains to be seen whether they will kind of do what they did last year. Will they hit their full potential? So they've got a lot of good players in that side, and it's time for our guys going to start pressing on and kicking on a little bit and get Raiders some better results. Remains to be seen. The Sheffield Steeldogs, so do get some points out of the weekend, but Bristol win the split 3-2, a 2-1 overtime win, a very early goal in the overtime period for the Steeldogs to win that one. But Bristol on the board with 3 points. That's having had some very, very tough weekends to start the year, a huge confidence booster. And yes, they've lost, but getting a point out of Sheffield in Sheffield is always a tough ask. And having started the weekend with 0 to come out of it with 3, huge for Jamie Elton and the boys. I'm sure that training has felt a little bit easier and a little bit lighter this week. And then, of course, Solway now in sole occupation of bottom of the National Division, still winless, a 5-2 defeat away in Telford against a Telford side that's been a little bit wonky to start the year, but has for the most part been pretty decent all in all. Great start for the Raiders on Saturday, but awful second half of the third. Sunday for Raiders felt out of ideas at times. Yeah, and there's been a few games like that early doors where it feels like a couple of the teams I've watched have kind of sort of run short of ideas. Plan A hasn't worked, and they haven't had time to formulate a plan B, or forgot what plan B was, or didn't have a plan B to start with. Feels like a bit of a theme maybe, but we'll see on that one. Either way, let's have a quick look at the upcoming fixtures for this weekend, because Friday night kicks things off over in Romford, a 7:30pm face-off at Sapphire Ice and Leisure between the Raiders and the Bees. We then head into Saturday, 5:30pm at the world's most versatile arena for the Hull Seahawks and the Peterborough Phantoms. That game is going to be very interesting. Don't ask me why, but we will see what happens on that one. Leeds and Swindon will meet at 6:30pm at the Castle in the Great Swindon Swap Around. 7p also at 6pm face-off. Up in Dumfries for the Sharks and the Raiders. Can the Sharks finally get on the board against an inconsistent Raiders side? We will see. MK take on the Bristol Pitbulls at the Thunderdome at 7pm, and a 7:30pm face-off at Ice Sheffield on Saturday for the Sheffield Steeldogs and the Telford Tigers. Sunday then, you can catch myself and Joe Scutts back on commentary in Slough for the 5pm face-off between the Bees and the Solway Sharks. Massively looking forward to seeing the Sharks with my own eyes. Something to note, Solway fans, when I've been watching and I've been in the rink, I've never seen you lose. Would be the thing to say there. Other games then on Sunday, 5:15pm face-off in Leeds for the Leeds Knights and the Sheffield Steeldogs for the Yorkshire Derby to start the year. 2 5:30 face-offs, Bristol and Milton Keynes will do battle again at 5:30 at Cribbs Causeway, and Peterborough will welcome Swindon. And then a 6pm face-off, as is traditional, in Shropshire. Telford take on the Hull Seahawks. What we'll do then very quickly, we'll press some buttons, and let's have a quick look at the table. Obviously still early doors in the NIHL National Division. He says trying to press buttons. There we go. But there we are. What a massive surprise. Leeds are top of the table again. Telford, who, like I said, felt a little bit off and on here and there, but 9 points from 6 games is a pretty good return. Though it should be said, 9 points as well for the Hull Seahawks with the game in hand. Here's something for you Seahawks fans. You'd be top again if you won your game in hand. Matty Davis must wonder where he banged his head and what dream he's living in now. A couple of teams on 8 points then. Both MK and the Bees have 4 wins from 6 games, although, of course, interestingly, both with equal goals scored and both with equal goals against, which is pretty impressive, all things considered. Peterborough then and Sheffield have 6 from 6. Sheffield with a game in hand there, which would obviously put them into that pack with 8 points if they won. Raiders have 5 from 6. Swindon, of course, with their struggling start to the year, they're in ninth, 3 points from 4. Bristol off the board, on the board as it were, 3 points from 6, and Solway, well, struggling to put goals in, struggling to and conceding too many. Albeit it should be said, they've only conceded 24 goals in 6 games. That's not terrible. When you look above them there, you've got Bristol have conceded 33, Raiders have conceded 27, Peterborough have conceded 27. But when you only score 10, you are not going to win much, unfortunately, on that one. What have we got here? Bristol Ice Max Bray was the important course. Yep, it's probably an upgrade. Had far much more size, experience, and even skill, having played at a high level. The issue, James, is he is advanced in years, and I think the one thing that Max can't do at this age is be the game breaker that Sobchak was. Now, obviously, clearly, something not right with Aaron Sobchak being in the lineup has been removed, and it's very, very clearly helped. One thing Max will do is he's a very, very good kind of people person who, if you've had a bit of a bad time in the room, he'll be able to kind of calm those things down and kind of knock some of those lumps out that maybe were there before. Is Max Bray your long-term solution? No, I don't think he is. But you make do with what you've got. If he's been able to come in, that's all you need. Also, since Tim Wallace took over in MK, 4 games in Leeds, Lightning have scored 8 but conceded 28, a major concern. I will turn this on its head for you, Jamie, not to worry so much, because how often did Basingstoke win in MK? Whether it was the Bison being top of the league or towards the bottom of the league, then it's not all that it's made up to be. People have bogey teams, and Leeds are just your bogey team. The issue being is that MK losing to Leeds isn't what lost MK the title last year. It was losing to the Bees, it was losing to Basingstoke, it was losing to Bristol. That's what caused you the problems in terms of losing last year. Because whilst Leeds had close games with those teams, they won them. Case in point, a couple of weeks ago, at the beginning of the month between Leeds and the Bees. Great game. Leeds won. Would MK have won that game? There's the question to be answered there. That's where MK fall down. Losing in Leeds isn't a problem. Everybody loses in Leeds. It's winning everywhere else. Where do you think Swindon would be the best chance for Swindon to have their first 4-point weekend of the season? Well, given the team that they're bottom, Solway at the moment, it's probably their best bet. Although I personally think Solway will pick up a win by that point. But against the team that's bottom, seems as good a place as any to try and get there. Michael, Pucking Mad, thank you for joining us, sir. Sharks seem to be looking for that first win, just looking for that first win. After that, perhaps the team will have a little more belief. Then bang, I'd never bet against a Martin Grubb team. I get what you mean. I do get what you mean on that front. And it does feel like with the Sharks that they're finding their feet still. And when they find their feet, you feel like they'll have found their feet and they'll start really becoming an issue for teams there. They're certainly, it's not they're not getting blown out. Like I say, 24 goals conceded in 6 games isn't actually terrible. It's not great, but it's not horrific. But the issue being, you got to win hockey games. You got to win hockey games, whether it's 7-6, 2019, however you do it, you got to find a way to win. Do you think Solway will improve, or will they struggle all season? I think they'll improve. Obviously, the release of Barry McKenzie during the week was a bit of a shock, but with an Elite League opening coming up, I think Barry's probably going to be fine. I think that they will not stand still, and they will make changes if they need to make changes. I think this is, as I said in my pre-season preview, this is what Solway wanted. They wanted the challenge. They wanted the opportunity to compete with some bigger clubs on a bigger stage and be challenged. They weren't challenged much in North One the last couple of years. Billingham did it in the cup final. That was pretty much it. And this is the thing that they wanted. They want to get down and they want to get into the fight. They want to get their noses bloody. They want to get a few knocks and a few lumps because it will make them a better on-ice team and they'll be a better off-ice organisation by having to work and compete against other teams at a higher level than what they were at. It's not a problem. Leeds is pretty much everyone's bogey team here, let's be honest. Yes. Still think Hull are being slept on, Bonner, Chamberlain, Ulrich, Svek get goals. Bartholomew's a stud. Young, handy. Barmer, one of the best in the league. Then there's plenty of grit underneath. I mean, there's plenty of grit in the things you've just met in the players you've just mentioned there, James. Let's be honest. Whole top six is Ulrich, Young, Chamberlain, Svek, Salem, and Bonner. Oh, that second line. Also, shout out Nathan Salem. Hopefully everything's going all right with the family and the house, mate. Bartholomew is the best point scoring D in the league. Yeah, here's the thing, because the problem, James, at the moment is they're being slept on because of what happened last year, and people want to see the consistency. The first 7-8 games of the season, doing well, doesn't breed consistency. Hull will stop being slept on after Christmas if they're still in like 4th, 3rd, 2nd or 1st. That's when that will stop happening, and people will have to take them seriously at that point. Now, trust me, having had conversations with Matty Davis during the summer, I take them seriously now. But the issue that they have is can they be consistent for the campaign? Leeds, we know, can. We're pretty certain Peterborough will get some level of consistency. They always do. Milton Keynes, I still maintain Milton Keynes lack the relentlessness that is needed to win a lot of stuff, but they are generally consistent. Can Hull be consistent? That is the hallmark of great teams. It's like I said last year, and I use this word a lot, relentless. You have to be relentless. Not just about being skillful or doing nice things. It is grinding it out and grinding it out. Telford are 2-time champions, not because they were the flashiest team, not because they were the most skilled, because they ground it out every week. When they played well, when they played badly, they found a way. Leeds, when they, all that top end talent, but they still had a defensive core no better than most of the other teams. And Sam Gospel, as we've seen, it's not perfect, but they ground it out again and again and again. That's what Hull need to prove they can do. Hull, I still don't believe will win the league. Hull for the cup? Is that one we maybe want to start thinking about where the money goes? Oh, Stuart Mogg, the highest scoring defenseman in the league. That's brilliant. If that's true, if that's correct, awesome. Love Moggy. Love him to death, having seen him develop as a young player. Either way, we put the National on pause for the moment, because the one thing we need to do is we need to start looking at the other divisions if we want to be out of here around the 9 o'clock mark. And we head across to North 1, and a few bits and pieces from the weekend. I am going to get up the chap's name just because I know Billingham have been tweeting about him, and I just for the life of me cannot remember his first name, and I'm very, very sorry, Stars fans. But there was, of course, this ridiculous save from the week from Mark Turnbull from Sunday's game for. With the Stars, where they beat Blackburn, and just if you haven't seen it, I'm just going to retweet it now onto @BannersOTW, and you can see it there. One game in Saturday from North 1 then, and another win at home for the Hull Jets. Blackburn, who have had a great start to the year, but they lose at Hull as well. The Jets, their away form's a little bit patchy, but at home, they have turned Hull into a fortress. 3-2, the Jets win over the Hawks, but the Hawks immediately rebound on Sunday. They beat the Stars in the Forum, which is a huge, huge result for Blackburn. Great save from Turnbull or not, the fact it might have arguably been the save of the weekend, but it doesn't matter. The points head back to Lancashire, and the Hawks are very much on the charge. As we mentioned about the Jets, they lost 3-0 to Solihull. A good win for the Barons. They needed that desperately. And D-side, they finally get another win on the board as well. They defeat the Scimitars, who, if you don't remember, they've hovered around the bottom teams for quite some time there. It's them and Nottingham fighting it out for the wooden spoon, but 6-0 D-side win there. And then Widnes with a massive, massive win. Not just a massive win over Whitley, but of course the one thing, like we said, it's been a crazy weekend for goalies, and the first goalie goal of the season. Now, technicality goalie goal, just in the same way that Rennie Maher's goalie goal wasn't actually scored by him either. But Luka Sadri gets credited for his first goal as a senior, and I believe possibly his first goal ever. As the Warriors accidentally play the puck into their own net to Sadri, the last man for the Wild to touch it. He gets credited with the goal, and the Wild end up skating out with a 5-2 win over Whitley there. There was a hat trick in this game. I'm just going to need to get the name the names up there. I believe it was Innes Gallagher. Yes, it was. It was Innes Gallagher who got a hat trick for the Wild in that game. What that means then, we've got a few games then coming up this weekend. 2 games on Saturday. Ice Sheffield the Place, 1 p.m. for the big local derby, the bottom of the table clash between the Sheffield Scimitars and the Nottingham Lions. And then it's Hobbs Moat Road, the Solihull Barons. They won 3-0 last weekend at home against Hull. Can they beat Whitley, who've had an interesting start to the year, but could they trip up and fall to the Barons at Hobbs Moat Road on Saturday? 6:30 p.m. is the face-off time there. Sunday then, a few games. Earliest face-off is at 5:10. That's Sheffield at home to Hull for a Yorkshire derby. 5:30 p.m. for Widnes. They take on Billingham. Big game in the context of given the start of the season so far. 6 p.m. then Blackburn take on Solihull. Blackburn look to continue their good start. And then 7:20 p.m. on the small pad at the NIC, the Nottingham Lions have their first visit of the season from the Deeside Dragons. Looking forward to that game. I believe that game will be on YouTube. As is usually the case with the Nottingham Lions. Free commentary there. Now, as we see, 9 games into the season for the Billingham Stars. They top the table with 12 points from 9, but Blackburn, with 2 games in hand, could very, very comfortably overtake them, and Whitley could draw level, 10 points from 8 for the Warriors, but it's the Hawks really sitting in the driving seat there. Hull, 8 points from their 6 games. Of course, they've all cut 4 wins, all at home. They have not got a point on the road as of yet, following their entry into North 1 this year. Solihull, 6 points from 5. Deeside, 4 from 6. Widnes, 4 from 5. Both of their, again, another team that has yet to score a point on the road of the Widnes Wild. Nottingham, 3 from 6. Sheffield, 2 from 6 so far this season. Charlie Thompson has just been suspended 2 games for fighting an unwilling combatant. He says, we quickly dash to Dops. Let's pull up the Dops Twitter and see what happens there. No, I was going to say they're not following me yet. Naughty, naughty. There we are. Charlie Thompson of the Sheffield Steel Dogs. Just see the video of that incident. Good call by Dops. First time I've said that this season. They've had a bit of an interesting start, haven't they? I still maintain that Darcy Flanagan suspension is problematic. So a lot of people, you watch the video on the Darcy Flanagan suspension for Oxford, and there's obviously a lot of talk about, sort of what he said in the moment, and did he go out trying to deliberately hurt someone? Now, if he's said to the referee, I'm trying to hurt the guy, he's an idiot. If he's deliberately tried to hurt somebody, he's an idiot. The issue with the Darcy Flanagan suspension is that he's been given 10 games for checking to the head, and the video presented by Dops does not show him checking a man in the head. Do him for incitement, do him for roughing, do him for the fight afterwards. If anything else, Joe Llewellyn gave him a punch in the back of the head. But you can't ban a man for checking to the head when he doesn't check a man in the head. That's a problem. Either way, one thing we will do is we will move very swiftly on to South 1. Speaking of our friend Darcy Flanagan, and we'll have a look then at what happened, because of course there were some very interesting results in South 1 over the weekend. Hull. What an idiot I am at times. Dear me, Hull's in the South now. Did you know? Slough. Big win for them against the MK Thunder. Obviously, MK, very much a development team. For those of you not aware with the Thunder, they have their agreement with MK. They have got some very good top-end talent there, but it's still very much a side that's there to develop players rather than win big. And Slough, the Holy Trinity, Jack Goodchild and the Moore brothers doing more damage, although starting to see a little bit more out of the secondary scoring in that game from the Jets. That'll be big for them. Elsewhere on Saturday, goals galore. Dan Weller-Evans, the surprise entrant into the chat. He guests for Chelmsford. Then Chelmsford having lost Jordan Lawday to a suspension for 1 game for his fight against Sonny Phillips last weekend. Weller-Evans, who of course trained and was on the bench for the Devils during COVID. He was loaned by the Bison, knows the Solent organisation very well, but steps in for the Chieftains and, well, goals galore. You definitely got your money's worth for your ticket down in Gosport. 9-5 win for the Chieftains in that one, just able to hold the hosts out of reach. And then the first game of their home and home series of the weekend, a comfortable 4-0 win for the Redhawks on the high road as they look to stay top of the table against the Oxford City Stars. The next night, though, however, Lauday back in net for the Chieftains, and it all goes wrong for Cliff and the Chieftains. 5-2 up at one point, Chelmsford, and they lose 7-5 to Slough. I have to kind of wonder about this one. In this case, because I said I wonder where the scoring was going to come from, and obviously that top line in Slough is not being held. They can't do anything with it in that case. But Slough are finding ways to win, and they're showing that they are. Maybe James in the chat mentioned people are sleeping on Hull. It felt like people, maybe including myself, slept on Slough as they are really starting to make some moves there. But the only other game on Sunday, one of the talking points of the weekend, Oxford, without a win going into Sunday, beat Streatham. Streatham lost 3 games last season, including the national final. They have lost already by the middle of October in the Oxpens. Petr Cech in net, 62 saves on 64 shots. A massive, massive result. And here's the thing. Petr Cech is not the greatest goalkeeper in ice hockey in the world. He is aging, he's over the age of 40. But big game players turn up when they're needed. And, they wanted this guy to be a leader for them. That's how you lead. 2 goals from Matt Lauday and 1 from Josh Abbott for the City Stars, pulling them over the line in that one. We'll then very quickly look at the table because it is a somewhat unfamiliar sight when it comes to South 1, because the Slough Jets are on top of the Britain Conference right now. 10 points from 7. Of course, Streatham have more than enough games in hand to overhaul that, but they've made a point. And also look at that for Streatham. Lost the game. They have conceded 6 goals in 5 games. Irrespective of the fact that they've lost that game, they are still a force to be reckoned with. Chelmsford in 3rd place, 8 from 7. Invicta, 6 from 5. So games in hand on those above them. Solent, 4 from 4. A mixed start to the campaign for the Devils, but still plenty of quality there. And as we saw from that first game of theirs I went to, they will definitely put up a fight and put up goals this year. MK, 2 from 3. Obviously not many games played for them, but they are a side expected to be around the bottom of the table. Romford, 2 from 6. And Oxford, finally off the mark. 2 points from their 5 games. Still though, where Streatham have only conceded 6, Oxford have only scored 6 goals. The City Stars do need to find a way. I'm pitching at Abbott. Apologies, Kaidi. But yeah, Oxford need to score more goals. It doesn't matter whether it's Hein Pitcher or Abbott. If I get the name wrong, as long as somebody bloody scores, I think that's probably the important thing here. Also, no penalty for a player taking a shot on goal well after the whistle. What's the call you make there, Rod? I think would probably be the thing there, because actually that's one of those things where you get a life tax, and that life tax is generally being punched in the face. Was Ethan Frayne not fit? If so, that's a bit brutal on him. My understanding was that he was fit, and they still called in Dan Weller-Evans anyway. I cannot make any further comment for one very simple reason, James. I don't know. But yeah, not great. But fair play on Dan Weller-Evans. Dan is a personal friend of mine. Always excited to see him. When he messaged me saying he was playing, I was a bit confused because I thought your game had been called off on Saturday because the Buffalo were meant to be playing Swindon this weekend before their withdrawal, and then to hear he was playing in Div 1 was a bit of a surprise. I believe Chelmsford was not a team he ever envisaged himself playing for, but as a chieftain, he is perfect. So I don't know. Maybe he went to training on Tuesday. We'll find that one out. We'll find that one out later. Oh, that's the wrong screen, Anthony. Don't press that button. No, let's go to there instead. Because what we'll do is we'll very, very quickly bash our way through. Let's get up last weekend for our friends in North 2. You were right, Kaidi, actually. Yes, it was Hein Pitcher scoring rather than Abbott. But he was a player, actually, when I was at the game in Oxford, who looked like the most potent attacking threat and just couldn't seem to put the puck on net. So fair play to Bailey for finding the net. Because yeah, there's a game in North 2 we need to talk about from Saturday. If you're looking at the screen, you can probably see the scoreline from the one that we need to talk about. in that one. We'll mention the other ones very quickly. Altrincham get a 5-2 win against the Nottingham Lions in Manchester. Solid win. Kind of the game that the Aces are going to have to win if they're going to want to push on and really cause problems in the in the title race in North 2. The other game on Saturday, a good away win for the Billingham Buccaneers. They get a 4-3 win in Sheffield against the Titans. Been a rough couple of weeks for the Buccaneers. They weren't getting the results, so to be able to squeak one out in Sheffield against a team like the Titans, who are quite readily established at this level, very, very good. And then there's that other game that you can see there. Kingston 0, Sutton 24. That is not a typo. Here's the thing that needs to be mentioned about this game. If you are unfamiliar with what happened, Kingston's netminder was thrown out about 11 minutes into this game. Is unsportsman conduct penalty? If it's called, I very rarely see that, to be perfectly honest, Rod, for that to be called. But yes, Kingston. 11 minutes into the game, the Kingston netminder has an altercation with one of the Sutton Sting forwards, punches him with his blocker, so he was thrown out. The Kingston Sharks didn't have a backup netminder at home. So what ended up happening was the first period break was taken then and there, allowing the Sharks to find any player that would put on the kit and would go in net. Step forward, Kyle Quinn, a man who has apparently played rec hockey in goal. And they played then a 28-minute second period. So they played, had the break, and then just swapped ends and kept going. It was 24-0 by the end of the second period. That's right. Not only did it end at 24-0, there was no scoring in the third. Wow. And we thought the Streatham MK game from last year was bonkers. Fair play to Kyle Quinn. A Kingston Sharks legend now till the day that he dies. Up there with all the greats. An instance I've only ever seen happen once with my own eyes, which was a Bison Romford game from a few years ago, where Tom Davis, who was captain of the Raiders at the time, had to step in. But yeah, you have to feel for the guys. It's almost harder not to score when you're Sutton at that point. Sutton, though, the perfect record continued on the Sunday, a 9-0 win at home over the Bradford Bulldogs. The Nottingham Lions, well, they get a point out of the weekend, and they actually pushed one of the title favourites pretty close. Telford with the 4-3 overtime win. Apologies, I've also missed out Telford's Saturday night big win, beating Coventry by 8 goals to 2. Coventry looked pretty solid so far. Not on the end of a good result there, but fair play to the Lions there for making Telford really work for it, and a point for the Lions' second team against a team that is very much going to be one of the title challengers this season. We then have a quick look at the league table for North 2. For those of you unfamiliar, of course, only an 8-team league, not tons of games played. But there it is in black and white. Sutton, perfect through 9 games, 84 goals scored. Thanks to that's what happens when you win 24-0 in 9 games. But Telford also perfect through their 5 games so far, so they would be level on points. But it's that game between Sutton and those games between Sutton and Telford are going to start being really, really important. Coventry, though, still hanging around. 7 games played, 10 points. Definitely not out of anything in that sense, and they have looked really solid this year. There is a bit of a drop down then after that. The Titans have 5 from 7. Bradford 5 from 5. Altrincham 4 points from their 4 games. 4 points then as well from the 7 games of the Billingham Buccaneers, one of the new teams in the league. Nottingham with their 1 win to their name and their point from the weekend. They have 3 from 7. Kingston yet to get off the mark, and now with an absolutely monumentally bad goal difference, having conceded 52 goals through 5 games, averaging over 10 goals against per game. Kingston could have given them a bit of goal support or anything. If they didn't buy that man a crate of beer, I don't know what to tell them at this point. That's just disappointing in every way, shape and form. But yeah, 19 lead this year, of course, in North 2 with the entry of the Bucks and the Sharks into that one. But yeah, the Buccaneers with a far better start so far to the campaign than the Sharks have had. And I mean, boy, oh boy, oh boy. I mean, how do you rectify yourself to that one? The one thing that has just occurred to me, of course, is we've not looked at the fixtures. We didn't look at the fixtures, did we, for this upcoming weekend? For a couple of leagues, actually, all things considered. I'm just going to very, very quickly. I'm pretty certain we didn't look at the fixtures for upcoming for South 1, which was a bit. Let's not. They're playing each other on a Wednesday. At least they're not playing each other on a Wednesday night at 10 p.m. like last year. Yeah, that was a classic, wasn't it? Anyway, we will quickly do some fixtures then, because I left those fixtures out from South 1. My sincere apologies there on that one. Big game, huge game now on Saturday at the Hangar between Slough and Streatham at 6:30. That's the only game on Saturday. Sunday, Chelmsford versus Solent, 6 p.m. at the Riverside. Very interested to see how that one comes out. Elsewhere on Sunday, MK at home to Slough. Can they avenge their 9-0 loss at the Thunderdome? Romford versus Oxford at 5:15 at Sapphire. Big chance here for Oxford to pick up some points against an inconsistent Romford side, but one that they must not sleep on. Chelmsford learnt that issue. You do not sleep on the Buccaneers. And then the other game on Sunday is a 6:45 face-off. Should be a huge game between Streatham and Invicta on the High Road. Games then in North 2 this upcoming weekend. Coventry look to get back to winning ways as they take on the Nottingham Lions on the Saturday. And then we said it was coming. It was going to be huge. Telford, Sutton in Shropshire, 7 p.m. this Saturday. Could be a huge game in the in context of the North 2 season. Very, very early on. Should be an absolute humdinger. If you're in the neighbourhood, go and make sure you check that one out. 2 games in on Sunday, both 5:30 p.m. face-offs. The new boys go to battle at the Forum, the Billingham Buccaneers and the Kingston Sharks. Hopefully Kingston will travel with 2 goalies this time and maybe not concede double figures. And then Bradford take on the Sheffield Titans. What we'll do then is we will head towards South 2, which is where I spent my weekend, all things considered. And I did have a whale of a time on Sunday. But we will just have a quick look at the games that we've had there. Bristol win the local derby down in Cardiff Bay. A 4-3 overtime win over the Cardiff Fire. Pitbull's had a pretty poor start to the year. They've been on a bit of an upward swing. Less of a good start for the Chelmsford Warriors. Aside from the fact most of the roster got a parking ticket in Lee Valley, a 10-1 home defeat to the Peterborough Phantoms is definitely not what was on the cards. And elsewhere on Saturday, a repeat of the playoff final from last year and a small measure of revenge for the Haringey Huskies. They beat the Invicta Mustangs by 4-2 at Alexandra Palace. Sunday then, Peterborough, a 4-point weekend and 18 goals in 2 games for the Phantoms 2. An 8-2 win over the Solent Junior Devils. Also 8 goals scored by the home side on the High Road. The Blackhawks in Streatham with an 8-5 win over the Warriors to condemn them to a 0-point weekend. And then Guildford versus Basingstoke, 7-3 win. Really enjoyed this game. And I tell you what, there must have been at least 150 to 200 people at a 4th Division British hockey game. At this one, fair few people, of course, have travelled up from Basingstoke. Of course, Hallam Wilson, Paul Petts involved in this one, so a few people kind of keeping tabs. But like I say, it's a slower style, and I've done my report. I've done an audio one for this one. I have to confess, I was struggling just to get the thoughts out of my head, and so I talked it out rather than wrote it out. And I actually, you know what? I'd go again and watch Guildford. I'd be tempted to go and watch them in a game against the Bristol. I know they've already played a game against Bristol, but you know what I mean, like an Invicta, Haringey. You know, a game like that. I'd be really interested to see the Phoenix in a game against a team that's kind of at a similar-ish kind of level. But credit to the Buffalo, who last year were pretty much of a nothingness, and Paul Petts and Hallam Wilson have got the Buffalo doing some different things, trying some different things, and the thing I can't fault them on was the work rate. Was it pretty? Absolutely not. They had to play a disruptive game to try and stop Guildford using the big ice, but they put in a good shift. And also, it should be said, Dan Weller-Evans, 64 saves on 71 shots in a 7-3 defeat. So more saves this weekend than Petr Cech for Dan. When you consider how many shots, I can't imagine how many shots he will have faced in Gosport, because let's face it, you face a lot of shots in Gosport because it's a small rink. But then to go onto that big ice and then turn away over 60 shots is a pretty impressive weekend. My understanding, having spoken to Dan on Monday, was he was very, very sore. Either way, then we will have a quick look at the table. And we'll say this now: questions, comments, anything you want to chuck into the chats. Of course, I'm going to try and knock off early-ish so that our friends in Belfast can get rocking and rolling undisturbed on that one. But the Peterborough Phantoms are top of South 2 at the moment with their 4-1 record from their five games. Bristol 7 points from 6. Guildford, though, have only played 3 games and are perfect through them, as are Haringey. Of course, winning their games in hand would take them to the top of the table. Cardiff, though, also on 6 points from their 5 games, though the issue that we've seen in the past from the Fire is a good start and then they start falling away. And we also had this from Streatham last year. They had a really good start to the campaign. They didn't have as good a start to the season this time out, beaten very heavily in Basingstoke by the Buffalo, but they have 6 points from their 5 games as well. Who is going to be in the leading pack the more the season goes on? But that is a lot of teams all within 2 points of each other. Last year's playoff winners, Invictus, they have 4 from 4. Chelmsford, 4 from 5. Basingstoke with just the 1 win, but they've only played 3 games so far thanks to the withdrawal of Swindon. Solent, 2 from 4. Oxford have only played the 1 game so far and lost it 10-4 to Bristol. Lee Valley, well, they've started scoring a few more goals. 10 goals in 4 games is positively rich form from the Lions, but they are yet to get a win on the board. 4 defeats from 4 so far for Lee Valley. And then we've done it again. Every game across all 5 divisions of the National Ice Hockey League structure covered in some way, shape or form. We've talked about all the big bits of news as we head towards, like I say, just going to truncate the end a little bit, just so that everybody's got the chance to catch us here and then head on over to AVFTB to catch our friends from Belfast. Because, of course, lots of stuff to talk about, especially a massive win for Belfast in the CHL last night. That 1-0 overtime win over Red Bull Salzburg at the Odyssey. Huge win. Lovely goal as well from Daniel Tedesco to win it for them. But yeah, like I say, very quickly, questions, comments, anything anybody wants to chuck in the chat, chuck it in now. Let's throw it out there. Caps start their NHL season against Pittsburgh because God hates us apparently. Connor Bedard has his first point in the NHL. Everybody's saying, oh, but he lost all his face-offs. Kid's 18, it's his first day on the new job. Did you get your first day on your first new job at 18 perfect? Don't think you did. And anyway, Blackhawks won. We've got the jerseys coming out. Halloween jerseys sold out in 45 minutes, which is obviously great to see for clubs. If you're new, you may not be aware, I don't do Halloween. I don't really do special jerseys either. I've not found a good-looking Halloween jersey yet. Phantom's Remembrance jersey coming out tonight as well. I don't know if that's actually come out yet. We'll have a quick look. For me, it's not a thing you should be putting on an ice hockey jersey, but such is life. I understand why people do it, and it's great to kind of raise money for the various causes. For me, I just don't personally think it's the thing you should put on an ice hockey jersey, all things considered. I get why, not for me. Interesting colour scheme. It's actually the most colourful and interesting looking jersey Peterborough have done all season for quite some time. But yeah, like I say, it's just it's personally not a thing I would personally feel is appropriate. But people obviously like it. People obviously do. That's their choice. It's not a choice for me, all things considered. Steelers and Storm are tied at 1 after 2. Fair enough. I tell you what, if the Manchester Storm can keep their form going, they are going to cause a lot of problems. A lot of problems. They kind of lulled Guildford into the creeping death, I think, when I commentated on them. And it should be said, Mitchell Martin, keep an eye on him. Very, very handy looking little player. Very handy looking player for the Storm there. Either way, like I said, we are going to cut things, like I say, a bit of a shorter show today, just like I say, to allow everything to breathe. So you get the opportunity to have your Wednesday night ice hockey double feature with our friends over at AVFTB. They've probably started. Head on over to their YouTube channel in a minute. We will call it there. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for everything related to the National Ice Hockey League. Join us for our journey around the rinks for our Banners on the Road series, where Basingstoke aren't playing. I'm finding anywhere that will take me this year, and that means games up and across as anywhere I can find them, as well as our Hockey Story series. That covers the weird, wonderful, and crazy world of ice hockey from the past to the present and long into the future, into wars behind the Iron Curtain, players, officials, and so much more from the NHL to the NIHL. It will all be there if you love your things to read in our Hockey Story series. The old BOTW podcast back catalogue is there on the website as well, and you can also download our free-to-download ice hockey tabletop game, Dice Hockey, that you can play. You can download the rules in the game and then just play it with bits and pieces you can find around your house. All I ask is if you do download it and you enjoy it, please do consider chucking a few quid towards Parkinson's UK. My dad has Parkinson's. Parkinson's is just horrible. anything we can put towards research and a cure would be massively, massively appreciated. But like I said, 12 years worth of stuff for you to go and look and enjoy over at bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. Facebook.com/bannersonthewall if you'd like getting the news to your Facebook feed. Everything that goes on the site, as well as the links for the stream, will go on there as well. Twitter, we are at bannersotw. Best place to keep up with me, really. That's got that's sort of the running, rolling commentary that I give from ice hockey kind of across Britain and the world. And of course, the virtual busking hat is there. Is buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. If you like what you see and you like to chuck a few quid in the hat to keep things up and running, it's massively appreciated. If you can't afford it, please do not feel obligated to do so. If you'd like to, it'd be massively appreciated. All the links to everything are down there in the description, because of course we're on YouTube live Wednesday nights. The first, the only, and I'm going to keep saying it, the best show that covers everything across the NIHL structure, from the national to the bottom of Division 2, from Leeds to Lee Valley and beyond. Wednesday nights here, the What's Current stream. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, keep that algorithm hamster running on his wheel, and of course, tell your friends. The more people who come and join the party, the better. There's so much good stuff happening in the NIHL. The more people we get talking about it, the more eyes we get on it. Let's grow the sport little by little by ourselves. And there we are, all done for another week. Back on Wednesdays, where we are and where we belong. It may not be the last time that I end up having to go into an Elite League commentary box. Let's just say that. But as much as we possibly can be, Wednesday night 8 p.m. is the home. And it's great to be back where we usually are, and it's great to have you all with me for the ride. And never take it for granted, the people who come and join in this stuff. Be happy. And off the back of that Norwich City video, if you need to, do reach out, but check on your friends. If you can't be happy, please be safe. As my friend Scotty Woods would say, take care of yourself and somebody else. For bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, this is Anthony Russell saying stay safe, and so long till next time. Head on over to AVFTB, enjoy your hockey where you find it this weekend, and make sure, if you get a chance, check out me and Joe on the B stream on Sunday.